regime may discriminate against a group, while at the same time tolerating its members being different than the members of the ruling elite. This was how Ottoman tolerance functioned in terms of class, gender, and religion. In the Ottoman Empire, certain groups, women, Christians and Jews, slaves, were legally subordinate to others, men, Muslims, the free. All religions were not deemed equally valid. Some groups were proscribed, and in the early Ottoman centuries, the only massacres that occurred were not massacres of Christians, but massacres of Shiites. Ottoman society was plural, and individuals could at times change groups or positions of power. Yet each group had a fixed place within a hierarchy based on class, gender, and religion. In practice, tolerating diversity meant creating an empire that was built on the maintenance of difference. The Ottomans did not seek to make all subjects into Muslims or even into Ottomans, the members of the ruling elite. Rather, they fostered institutions such as the patriarchates, the offices of the Armenian and Greek spiritual leaders, that allowed Christians and Jews to go about their personal lives, enjoying cultural, religious, and linguistic rights without much interference or limitation. Yet at the same time, religious conversion was used as a means of integration into the Ottoman Empire's social fabric. More than in the Mughal Empire, the Ottomans recruited its elite from the cream of the crop of conquered peoples, especially the youth and women, thereby ensuring the dynasty's greatness and the subject people's subordination. Conquered Christian and Muslim royalty, military and religious leaders, and commoners were all incorporated in the imperial project from the beginning. The Ottoman dynasty intermarried with European royal houses, including the Byzantine and the Serbian. Yet another reason to include this Muslim imperial family within European history. As cruel, unjust, and violent as it was, especially for women, slavery allowed individuals to be incorporated into the elite levels of society when women joined the harem and boys were inducted into the administration and military. Christians were made into members of the Ottoman ruling elite through cooperation, subordination, or conversion. Like other empires in history, such as the Mughal Empire here, the Ottomans oversaw large-scale demographic change through conversion. What are today the countries of Bosnia, Bulgaria, Greece, Hungary, Serbia, and Turkey underwent massive religious conversion in the Ottoman centuries. Now, although such regimes as the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt relied on converted slave soldiers, from whose ranks arose the Sultan, the Ottoman Empire relied mainly on converts to make up key elements of the ruling family, the dynasty, the administration, and military, converting massive numbers of people in the process over its first 3 centuries. It defined membership in central ranks of the elite class by religious conversion and continually changed its interpretation of that religion. As the astute 17th century English resident of the Ottoman Empire, Sir Paul Ricoeur, observed, no people in the world have ever been more open to receive all sorts of nations to them than they. And the English call it naturalization, and the Turks, the Ottomans, call it becoming a believer. It truly was an empire of conversion, fostering extensive population change while tolerating the existence of religious groups at variance with the ruler's religion, nearly until its tragic end. But tolerance and intolerance were not opposites. Tolerance, discrimination, and persecution always went together. At the same time that social and legal hierarchies preserved the peace for centuries, discrimination and division were a fact of daily life and opportunities. For centuries, the Ottomans were open to receiving every type of person as a Muslim, whatever his or her language or background, whether a slave, a commoner, or a member of the elite. But then, in later years, the Ottomans turned away from incorporating diversity and tried to save the empire by remaking it first into an Ottoman Muslim polity and later a more Turkish one. And this is the lesson for us today. The consequence was that tolerance, such as it was replaced by ethnic cleansing and genocide, leading ultimately to the dynasty's own downfall. Now, in the late 19th century, a group of intellectuals in the empire merged European Enlightenment thought and Islam, resulting in the first experiments with constitutionalism and democracy and parliament. These efforts failed, however, in the maelstrom of nationalism and external aggression, leading to mass bloodshed, including the first massacres of Christians in the empire in the 1880s, 90s, and in 1909, and culminating in the Armenian genocide of 1915. Along with earlier Ottoman religious toleration, why isn't this genocide considered a part of European history? The fact that German generals and soldiers assisted the Ottomans in committing mass murder during the First World War does make it part of European history. But more important, accepting the Ottomans as a European empire allows us to recognize the Armenian genocide as the first genocide committed by a European empire in Europe, one that began in Istanbul. Viewing the Ottomans as part of European history does not mean the Ottoman contribution was always positive. The story of the Ottoman dynasty and its empire that I tell seeks neither to glorify the House of Osman nor to condemn it, its past, but to present all that makes it both different and surprisingly